Just a couple of months ago, my master's thesis, something on which I had spent so much time and money on, had been rejected. My job contract was ending and I couldn't find a new one. So I was pretty much about to be broke. A very close friend of mine who I deeply cared for and was somewhat responsible for was about to go homeless. And my own mother, who I have not seen for nearly 3 years, I found out that her health was declining. Now all of these events had happened simultaneously, and this was by far the most stressful period of my existence. The stress was so bad that I almost felt like there was a barbed wire just sliding through my windpipe, and I felt this way day and night for weeks. If you're older than 20, you probably have gone through such stress, or probably are going through something similar right now. Back when I was a teenager, I had this naive notion that I was just supposed to be happy throughout my life, like happiness was supposed to be the default setting and I should pursue happiness. Now being 26, I realize that you are not going to be happy during the darkest days of your life. So you can't base your entire life on something that leaves you as soon as the storms arrive. You need something more than that, something that you can hold on to, especially during your dark moments. Viktor Frankl was the psychiatrist who was put in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. Like, the conditions of this camp were absolutely brutal. They were made to work absurd number of hours a day, barely given food, had no supplies of any kind. The weak workers of this camp were executed. His family members were executed. These were like the worst possible conditions under which a human could exist. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl describes his experiences as a prisoner in this Nazi concentration camp. One of the key observations that he made during this time was that among the fellow inmates of the concentration camp, those who survived were able to connect with a purpose. They had meaning in their lives, and this offered them some positive emotion even during the highest degree of suffering known to man. And those who had lost this meaning had no purpose. They were the first ones to die. Let that sink in for a moment. This is called logotherapy. Logotherapy is based on the premise that the primary motivational force of an individual is to find a meaning in life. Now, luckily, I've never been in a concentration camp, but Viktor Frankl's message hit home. When I was in 10th grade or so, I found it impossible to sit in this chemistry class. The reason was I could not understand how learning about compounds and chemical reactions was ever going to be of any use to me. That class had no meaning to me. But when I changed the way I thought about the class, then things began to change. I reevaluated my value system. I thought if I performed well in this class, I would get a good grade. And if I got a good grade, I would be able to get into a good uni. And if I got into a good uni, I would get a good job and be financially stable. Now all of a sudden there was meaning attached to this class. I was in this class no longer to learn about chemistry, but rather to attain my financial stability. This made the class a lot more tolerable than it previously was. You know, throughout your life, you are going to be required to do things that you don't really want to do. Adding meaning to these things by really examining your own value system and understanding how they impact your highest priorities will make them much easier to perform. In his book, Viktor Frankl talks about a boy who had a terminal illness and would not live for long. Even an operation would be of no help. Now, this boy remembers watching a film in which he had seen a man wait for his death in a courageous and dignified way. The boy had thought it was a great accomplishment to meet death so well. Now he knew fate was offering him a similar chance. When I read this paragraph, I got goosebumps. The boy was about to die, but looking at it as an opportunity to act in a dignified and courageous manner all the way to the very end gave meaning to his suffering and therefore made it bearable. If you're getting divorced or your family member is sick or you just lost your job, it gets kind of hard to find meaning in your suffering. When I'm in a really tough spot, I think to myself that this situation that I'm in is merely a test from my creator, from Allah, designed to forge me into a formidable warrior. If I can go through this suffering with honor without using substances to numb myself, then I would be truly proud of myself. This test will make me wiser and stronger. In my deepest, darkest moments, this is what gave meaning to my life. Now, when a big stressor actually hits you, it's hard to be rational or thinking about finding meaning in it. Most people are just too overwhelmed by the anxiety that has taken over them, and they simply go into fight or flight mode or just numb themselves with some hedonistic desire. In order to really face the big stressors, you have to introduce micro stressors in your day-to-day life so that you can build up a certain amount of stress tolerance and can actually think rationally during stressful scenarios. Imagine I told you something like, hey buddy, you need to fight another grown man in a cage in front of thousands of people tomorrow. Now, most people would probably shit themselves if they heard this. However, if a guy had been training martial arts for 5 or 6 years, has had a bunch of sparring sessions with killers, is used to taking a punch and is confident in his skill level, he will not be too bothered by having to fight someone in a cage. Think of your ability to tolerate stress just like a muscle. You have to train that muscle every day in order to grow it. You can work this muscle of stress tolerance with activities such as taking cold showers, fasting, or going for long runs. Basically voluntarily doing things that put you out of your comfort zone. Make sure that you watch this video to learn about one such activity that really improved my stress tolerance and transformed me as an individual.